Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to the Royals Rundown Podcast. I am Jake Milham, joined by my unfearless co-host, Jeremy Greco.
Fearless? Does that mean I have a lot of fears?
That means you have some fear, such as the Royals not making any major moves in Nashville, right?
I don't care if they make any major moves in Nashville, as long as they make some this offseason. And David Lesky, in his newsletter today, reassured me quite a bit. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm. I did.
I told you I was gonna take the wheel out of your hands, and I'm gonna do it now.
Jeremy, you also said you would have the Slack channel pulled up, ready to review all of the things you've linked to me, and it's a lot, everyone. We haven't been on the show in a week. There's a lot to talk about.
So David Lesky said, and if you're not subscribed to his newsletter, do it. It's Substack. Go do it. It's free. He's got a paid version where he gives stuff away sometimes. He gives away some baseball tickets, so that's also an option, but it's free. Anyway, he said, I do want to touch on one more thing from yesterday regarding JJ Piccolo's comments, that they have $30 million to spend this winter. First, he did say they could go over that if the words he speaks matter to you. But second, as I noted on whatever the hell that social media site is called, I know you have trouble with that, Jacob, that what happens if he says they have $50 million to spend and they only spend $30 million? People are up in arms, and rightfully so. Now what happens if he says they have $30 million, but they spend $50 million? He's praised. And I think that's accurate. I think that he goes on to say $30 million is a minimum of what he would expect the Royals to spend this offseason. And based on that logic, and I see no flaw with that logic, I think that's accurate. So I've already said, that I think that based on the way he was talking in the initial post-season, off-season
press conference,
press conference. That's the word I was probably looking for at some point. That I thought that the Royals were actually going to be pretty aggressive and make a bunch of moves, and then they were like, we'll keep Josh Taylor. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit, I think.
You cannot stand, and we will talk about Josh Taylor later on, but if anyone can get a peek into our Slack channel for Royals Review, everyone would know your disdain for Josh Taylor continuing to be on the 40-man roster.
It's the same damn thing as Ryan O'Hearn as Hunter Dozier. I do not have a problem with Josh Taylor. None of this is Josh Taylor's fault, just like it was never Ryan O'Hearn's fault, just like it was never Hunter Dozier's fault. This is a failure by the front office to make decisions that make any kind of sense.
Okay. I think, and I do want to talk about the moves that we have seen since the last time we recorded. Of course, there's plenty of transactions that have happened between now and then. We only want to touch on the major ones that affect the major league roster as for right now. So first off, Jeremy, while we were recording last Wednesday is when the Royals decided, that's an hour and a half window out of the week, right? Yeah. And you know what? I don't know who is tapping into my computer over here. I mean, I'm sure the Royals front office wants to know what I'm writing about, what I'm talking about in regards to the team at all times. But they decided, hey, now we're going to announce the signing of Garrett Hampson, a utility man, a toolsy infielder with a good glove and the ability to get on base and speed.
He plays the outfield, too.
Oh, yes. Sorry. The outfield as well. Listen, plays all over the place.
Some people in Royals Twitter are theorizing that Kyle Isbell and Drew Waters are the most likely to lose playing time to him. I'm not convinced of that myself, but it is important to recognize his ability to play the outfield, as some people think that's where he will spend the majority of his time.
That would be very interesting. And I think that his signing does have some ramifications for the rest of the offseason, more so than the actual in-season results he may give. Jeremy, I would like to, just in 30 seconds, give us your thoughts on signing not just Hampson, but a player like Hampson.
So it's one of those signings that in a vacuum, it doesn't move a needle. It's just there. $2 million is not a lot. Even for the Royals, it's not a lot of money. Speedy utility guy depth is something that's fine to have. The issue is the Royals are the situation they're in. As I talked at length about during the season, and not as much recently, but I haven't stopped thinking it. The Royals' problem isn't a lack of major league talent; it's a lack of high-end major league talent. They've got a bunch of Garrett Hampsons on the roster already. They've got Nick Lofton, they've got Samad Taylor, they've got Michael Garcia, they've got Michael Massey, they've got Drew Waters, they've got lots of guys who can play multiple positions. They've got Nick Prado, who plays first and the outfield. They've got multiple guys, Devin Mann. I can't stop thinking of them all. But they've got a lot of guys who can play multiple positions who are not making a lot of money. They didn't. My problem with this plan, this signing, is that they didn't need another one. I do not understand what the thought process is.
I completely agree, and I think that I don't know if we're going to see the ultimate meaning behind this signing until well past opening day, until we see how much playing time he actually gets. I get it. If you look at his 2023 numbers, Hampson was actually fairly strong. But that is kind of the outlier season for him.
Right.
Like
he's 29.
Yeah.
Like your breakout season at 29 does not portend excellent future results.
No, it does not. I am hopeful though that this is more of a move to give the Royals an insurance policy to allow them to be able to move a player like Nick Lofton, to move a player like Samad Taylor. I think a lot of folks are forgetting about Tyler Tolbert in this whole equation. He is another center fielder, middle infield type of guy who the Royals have, who may have some value. I'm not saying that they have immense value, but as the Royals showed us today, and here's my segue, the Royals showed us today, even Dylan Coleman has trade value. And they opened up a 40-man roster spot by trading Dylan Coleman down to the Houston Astros in exchange for Carlos Mateo, a right-handed pitcher. Jeremy, I saw that face, I heard that groan. I wanna hear your thoughts, man. What you got?
So the Royals, I think reasonably, laudably wanted a 40-man roster spot so that they could participate in this year's Rule 5 draft. I think apparently it's quote David Lesky Day. He said it best, but it's not, he's not the only one who's had this thought, but he said it best, that it's an opportunity for free talent.
Yeah.
It's a draft. You go get a guy, and now you got a guy. You didn't have to sign him to a major league deal. You didn't have to trade anybody for him. You just got a new guy. Maybe he's good. Maybe he's Joaquin Soria. Maybe he's the first couple of years of Brad Keller. You don't know. Maybe he's what's his face, Birch. And just he's not good. But
you never know.
You might as well try. It doesn't cost anything. It costs $50K, which is, if $2 million is nothing to the Royals, what is $50K?
Yeah, nothing. Dropping the bucket.
So yeah, cool. Rule 5 pick, and we'll talk about him in a second. Pretty good Rule 5 pick. I'm excited about it. But so it's kind of like they traded Dylan Coleman for a lottery pick and the guy that they got in the Rule 5 draft. That's kind of how you can think about it. It's probably how the Royals want you to think about it. But I'm here to tell you that they traded Dylan Coleman for Josh Taylor.
Oh my gosh, yes.
They traded Dylan Coleman for Josh Taylor. They traded Dylan Coleman for Garrett Hampson. These are other guys that are taking up 40-man roster spots. That meant that they had to get rid of Coleman in order to free up a 40-man roster spot. And this is what I'm talking about. When people are like, well, I don't care if they bring back Josh Taylor at $1 million. It's a roster spot that can't go to anybody else unless they cut him. And they're not going to cut him for the 40-man or for the Rule 5 draft when they just signed him.
Right. If they really wanted to use him. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please. Do you want Dylan Coleman for a top 30 prospect out of the Yankees system and a lottery ticket out of the Astros system? Yes, but you could have had him and those guys if you would have got rid of Josh Taylor. Okay, I think that's an absolutely fair way to look at it, and I want to clear the air on this. Carlos Mateo, the return on this is far from even a what's the word? An optimistic lottery pick or lottery ticket, excuse me. He was strong in the Dominican Summer League back in 2022, but he did not look very good in the Complex League. Granted, he's still 19 years old, so we'll see what happens there. I was surprised because for your dislike of Josh Taylor, which I'm not saying is completely
dislike Josh Taylor.
I know. But he's kind of the new whipping.
I just like his roster spot.
There you go. That's just like how it was with Ryan O'Hearn, how it was with Hunter Dozier. We see them as roadblocks to better talent, right?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I was looking at this, and Dylan Coleman and Josh Taylor had some similar playing time in 2023, surprisingly. Coleman had 23 games, Taylor had 17. And
someone playing time at the major league level.
Yes, at the major league. Thank you very much. I will say I was not surprised that Coleman was the player that they chose to move. I will say that.
I should clarify that there's really absolutely no reason for me to be this worked up about it, because chances are very high that Josh Taylor still gets cut this offseason. And then you go, yes. Well, you gave up him and Coleman, and that's just how it had to be. Because the Royals can't be aggressive. They can't spend $30 million on free agents or trade acquisitions if they don't kick some more guys off the roster.
Right. And I think that this was, I'm focusing more on they saw that they could trade Dylan Coleman for the Yankees 25th ranked prospect, according to MLB Pipeline, and another young pitcher that they can maybe develop. It's when I'm looking at Coleman and Taylor side by side, I hate to say it, but Taylor still did provide more to the Royals in winning than Coleman did. It's sad but true. Sad but
true. Is it though?
It is.
Taylor, my point in pointing out that they had similar major league time is that Taylor didn't pitch in the minor leagues because he was hurt. And he didn't pitch at all in 2022 because he was hurt. You can't count on him to make your roster. Dylan Coleman was at least healthy.
Right, but he was also a guy who they had to bring up twice in the season, and both times he did not show any signs of improvement. He did not show any signs, even though the Royals had open bullpen spots. This was at a time in the season where injuries and post-trades, Dylan Coleman came up to supplant those players, and he still could not stick in the major league bullpen. And that was frustrating, especially after seeing his, he was really good in 2022. He was, I wouldn't say great, but he surprised everyone. He pitched in 68 games, and he was solid in most of those 68 games. That is what the Royals bullpen needs to be built around, is this young, controllable bullpen talent. But Coleman came out, and more often than not, he was a liability coming out of the bullpen, even if the stuff is really good. And I don't think that it's fair for some Royals fans to go and say, hey, why didn't we hold on to Coleman? Maybe he can turn a corner. Maybe he can, show his stuff and reclaim his former form. I'm sorry. What do you want the front office to do? Do you want him to hold on?
Cut Josh Taylor.
Do you want them to hold on? Go ahead.
Speaking of young and controllable, Dylan Coleman had 2 options left. He was pre-arb for another 2 years. They had to pay arb money to Josh Taylor this year. You want to be young and controllable. He's 27, so he's not that young anymore, but he was controllable.
Did they have to pay arb money? I thought that their deal came in below.
They avoided arbitration with Josh Taylor by giving him $1 million.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's not a lot of money, but he's in his arb years.
Right.
And he's 30.
Well, maybe
they're 31 now.
Maybe they also saw that at least they could get something for Coleman in return for losing Coleman instead of Taylor. I don't know.
You can still cut Taylor and then also trade Coleman.
Yes,
if you really
I think
to.
I think we both are getting too hinged upon Josh Taylor here.
It's a bit much.
It is. I think Josh.
Josh Taylor. I'm sorry, Josh Taylor's mom. Whoever else, I don't know.
I'm sorry, Josh Taylor's agent. I hope you're having a great winter.
I'm sorry to his agent. His agent just got him $1 million guaranteed. His agent is like, I am amazing at my job.
Oh man, but listen, those two moves were really the only major concrete things to happen out of the winter meetings. Well, other than the Rule 5 draft, of course, and the draft lottery. But we would be remiss.
I almost forgot the draft lottery.
I know, right? Oh yeah, that's gonna
I had.
I think most folks have already repressed that memory. But before we continue talking about baseball stuff, we got to hear from our listeners, Jeremy.
Oh, right. Yeah. I told you.
No, it's fine, dude. So on the last episode, we asked you, the listeners, we have talked about music a lot on this podcast, throughout. We talk about movies and TV shows more often than not, but we talk about music every now and then as well. So I asked the listeners, what is your favorite type of music? And we got a few responses. Luke 57 said, I'm boring and only listen to 90s country. Luke, hey, to each your own, and I don't think there's anything wrong with 90s country. There's some songs that are better than others, but that's all with that.
Country has been my main genre at times in my life.
I'm lean more towards 2000s country if I have to go to a genre. Or a decade,
2000s country artists I'll listen to, and there are others that I don't have time for.
Fair enough. Ginger620 said, according to Spotify, it's Slayer or Hellripper, with everything else being a distant third place. Ginger, I will say that Hellripper is a far left turn from 90s country. So, yeah. And then also, good friend of the podcast, Lux, said, my most played artist this year was an anime-style art pop band. The rest was punk and metalcore. Lux, I kind of agree with you there. That's a good 3 if I had to choose any. Jeremy, what's your do you do Spotify or Apple Music?
I do Google Play Music.
Oh.
YouTube Music.
Who do you think was your most listened to artist this year?
I don't listen to a lot of standalone music.
Okay.
It just, I don't know. I used to when I had a commute, then I discovered audiobooks. It's just not, I listen to a lot of music during things, and I appreciate a lot of music. But like so I guess my most listened to genre would be JRPG soundtracks.
Okay.
My favorite, if I was pressed, my favorite non-video game genre would actually probably be K-pop.
Okay. And we were talking about K-pop just on the last podcast.
Exactly. And you're like, K-pop. And I'm like, wait. K-pop? We're talking K-pop now. What? But I didn't know we could talk K-pop. Why is this a baseball podcast when it could be a K-pop podcast? What? I don't know. Podcast.
Oh my
God. That's the name of our soon to arrive K-pop podcast. Is just call it Codpast. And everyone will be like, what is wrong with you?
You almost stuck the landing there, Jeremy. It was you were descending, and you just kind of stumbled on the way down
Biles,
there.
I am not.
Oof, that is true. She is much more graceful than the Chiefs were in Lambeau Field. I will say that.
What's your favorite genre there, Mr. Milham?
It has to be just in general country. I will say.
All right.
I'm getting more into I've heard so many different names for it. I don't like indie music. I do like Americana music.
Okay.
I will say more, just straightforward traditional country in a sense with some more realistic messages. I think more often than not, I can relate to lyrics a lot more than a style of music. Like I've been listening to a lot more of Linkin Park's more emotional songs as of late. For some reason. It's just kind of been a little trip down memory lane.
I do like me some emo pop,
Yeah.
some Fall Out Boy, some Panic at the Disco.
There was some metal. I think it's called baby metal
Yeah.
that I was introducing Honey to, and she was so confused.
Yeah, I bet she was.
Having these girls dancing up on stage with the metal music going on in the background. But hey, it's a super popular.
I'm gonna give you my favorite country artist, and I'm gonna read your face to see how this goes.
I'm
All right,
just
you ready?
Stare at the camera then.
Brad Paisley. I know. Yeah, he's the guy that drew the draft pick yesterday. So that's how I'm going to segue into that. Completely unintentionally, because really Brad Paisley legitimately is one of my favorite. He's so good with the guitar.
Yeah, great with guitar. Great with the guitar.
Not so good with the lottery picking, but yeah. So Royals got basically the worst draft pick they could have gotten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's, Jeremy, I'll get your thoughts here in a second, but let's go ahead. If you've been living under a rock, the Royals were awarded the 6th overall pick in next year's draft. Now, that might not sound too bad, but when you look at the fact that the Royals finished the 2023 season with the 2nd worst record in baseball and were tied with 2 other teams for the best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick, falling down to 6th means a lot. It is very bad. This was the worst case scenario for the Royals heading into the 2024 draft lottery. There is, I will say, I think a detail that I'm glad Max Reaper, our editor over at Royals Review, put into his article is saying that there's a lot of new rules regarding this draft lottery. If I'm understanding correctly, technically, the Washington Nationals actually were won the 1st overall pick. However, due to the new rules, they could not pick higher than a certain slot. So they did not.
Also,
go ahead.
They were second. They were the first draw. Then they redrew, got the Guardians, and then they drew for the 2nd pick and got the Nationals again.
Oof. Yeah, the Nationals are currently picking 10th, in according to those rules. Yeah, I think, truthfully, Jeremy, I will say this. I don't think a lot of folks would be, I think people would still rightfully be mad about the Royals picking number 6. I think the fact that the Guardians are picking number 1 after having a solid year, that is what is pissing off the fan base. Jeremy, before I give my thoughts, go with it, man.
The White Sox are picking 5th. So 2 teams that finished above the Royals or in their own division are picking ahead of them. And the 6th, like for this draft, the 6th pick, as far as like the talent available, fine, whatever. The problems with the 6th pick are that by the time the Royals got the 6th pick, the worst pick that they could get was 7th. So they the lottery only got them 1 spot up, and the worst pick before the draft even started was 8th. So they moved up 2 spots, but as you said, they were tied for the best odds to get first, and not getting first not only means 5 guys get pulled off the board before they get to choose, but it means they get less money to spend on their draft picks, which makes it harder to draft the whole class. Because as the Royals like to do, they like to underslot guys even in the first round. Hey, knock that off. She's very unhappy about all this. They like to underslot guys and then spend the money on the other guys. And if you don't have the money, you can't do that. So that's a problem. And the other thing is that because the 6th pick is the last pick of the lottery, so they pick the lottery up through the 6th, and then from there on it goes by record. Which is why the Royals, the worst they could get was 8th. Was if 6 teams that were not the A's or the Royals got lotteries, then it would have gone A's Royals.
Yep.
So by being 6th, what that means is that if next year they get in the top 6, they cannot be in the top 6 in 2025 because of the way the draft rules work.
Right.
Now, quoting Lesky again, from his article. Maybe it's not something to get too worked up about, because if the Royals are still looking to try and pick in the top 6 in the middle of so the 2024 draft is next, 2025 draft, they can still draft high. If they're still looking to pick high in the 2026 draft, then what are they doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
So hopefully it's not going to matter. They're just going to be like, well, it's fine. We've got guys. We'll just fill in with whatever draft pick we get. But yeah, so that's why it's frustrating. Is it's just like the worst. It's the worst case scenario as far as like how far back they could get and how it affects future drafts. Because if they pick 7th, which would be almost the worst case scenario, or even 8th. Worst case scenario as far as picking this year and as far as getting money to spend in the pool, they at least would not eliminate themselves from picking highly, in the
distant future. Yeah. So, number one, while we're plugging fellow Royals writers, I do think that Preston Farr came out with the most eloquent response last night following the really piss poor draft lottery results. I think that I would be much more mad about this if there was a slam dunk,
a Paul Skeens.
Yeah, like if there was a Paul Skeens or even a Dylan Cruz. I think that there was, I think the top 4 players selected in 2023 would have probably been the top pick in 2024. I will say this while we are talking. The New York Yankees and San Diego Padres are finally finalizing a trade regarding Juan Soto.
Oh,
yeah. So there
was such a great article headline on the Fangraphs that I put in the Slack chat. The Yankees acquire Juan Soto at home. So you've heard the meme that's like, I want McDonald's. Mom says I got McDonald's at home, and then you show McDonald's at home, and it's like some knockoff thing, right?
Yeah.
And they got Alex Verdugo. He's like, they're like, he's knockoff Juan Soto. He's not Juan Soto, but somebody might say he is. So I guess they're getting Juan Soto and Juan Soto at home.
Yeah, it is. I was kind of hoping that them trading for Verdugo, was hey, we're going to try to slide him into a Soto package, but they have not. So the San Diego Padres are sending Juan Soto and Trent Grisham as well to New York for Michael King, Drew Thorpe, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, and Kyle Higashioka, I believe. Higashioka. Thank you. So a lot of players moved there. That is
Higashioka's and Michael King were both pretty good last year.
Yeah, they were very good, but I mean those are the players you have to sacrifice when you're trying to acquire. I'm sorry, you're kind of a hater if you disagree. Juan Soto is on a Hall of Fame trajectory right now.
All right, I don't disagree, so I guess I'm not a hater.
You are a hater, Jeremy. I saw that face. You hate it, don't you?
No, I don't hate it. I don't understand. I need to know who the other guys are.
I got
I don't know who those guys are.
Fair enough.
I don't know what that means.
So yeah, that is a big move, but hopefully that big offseason domino will lead to some other dominoes. We are expecting
still waiting for Shohei.
Yeah, I mean we're really waiting for Shohei and Yamamoto to make their announcements, see where all that money is going, and then I think the next tier of talent will start moving around the league. But hey,
if you're wondering why that is when there are so few teams who are in on Ohtani, I'm going to quote somebody else now, or paraphrase somebody else now. Craig Calcaterra in his newsletter talked about how the Dodgers are probably wanting Ohtani, one of the teams that want him. If they can't get him, well, now they're looking at JD Martinez and Yamamoto maybe. And the Diamondbacks want Martinez, but Martinez isn't going to sign with them yet because maybe the Dodgers are going to offer him more money, and it just goes down and down and down and down like that.
Yeah, and that's why, for those who don't understand why it's called a domino effect, because it truly is. You have a few guys at the very top who affect just dozens of other decisions around the league, and that's just how baseball is right now. It's it's frustrating, especially for a team like the Royals.
The thing about, and this is the thing that differs MLB free agency from, say, the NFL free agency. I think NBA free agency is the same way, but I don't follow that one very much, so I can't say that for sure. But NFL free agency says nobody signs until weeks after the season ends, whereas MLB free agency says the day after the season ends, you can sign.
Yeah.
And so these guys, when you talk NFL free agency, you don't know what's going on until the day. And then everybody signs all at once because everybody's already made all their deals and you get all the news at once and it's all very exciting. Because all the dominoes have already fallen. You just didn't know it yet. With MLB, we have to wait and watch the dominoes fall individually.
Yep. Hey, let's go ahead. We haven't even talked about the Rule 5 draft yet. Which is,
well, we've hinted at it.
We've hinted. We have hinted. We have teased our listeners for long enough. It's time to talk about the Rule 5 draft, which happened Wednesday night. That was kind of the closing, the swan song, if you will, of the MLB winter meetings down in Nashville, Tennessee. The last big thing that they had to handle that really most fans were tracking. Unlike the draft lottery, that goes by your record. So the Royals had the second pick, or they had the second slot, if you will, in the Rule 5 draft, and I think that they used it very wisely. They picked up right-handed pitcher Matt Sauer from the New York Yankees. He came in as the Yankees' number 25 prospect, according to MLB Pipeline. Jeremy, you were talking about him a little bit earlier on, but just to give a little bit of background on who he is to the listeners, he's not going to come in and be a guy who is competing for a rotation spot within the season, within the first 2 months of the season or so. He does have some very good pitches. I will say his fastball is good. His slider is making some good progress, and his changeup and curveball also come in as solid pitches. Health is a big concern. He was drafted all the way back in 2017, and yet he has not gotten, I don't think he's gotten, he hasn't gotten above Double-A, just simply because of the lost 2020 season. Tommy John, that'll knock you out for a little while longer. If folks don't remember, he had a record-setting game in 2022, and that is, I don't know, maybe that's where some of his legend comes from, if you will.
Oh, absolutely.
But he struck out 17 guys in less than 100 pitches in a Double-A matchup, granted, but that is still just crazy.
I can't strike out 17 guys in a single game in Double-A.
I can't strike out one.
Yeah. I like to think that I could strike out one guy who's just like so overeager for the meatballs I'm throwing. He just overswings and misses.
Yeah. And I think that I'm very intrigued to see what he is post-injury, because a lot of his stuff, a lot of his scouting is still from his draft profile, because even as a high schooler, he was touching 97 miles an hour, which was like, hey, that's great for a high schooler, especially. That has dropped significantly even before the elbow injury. His control is solid, which helps make up for that. But I am curious if the Royals are going to try and keep him stretched out as a starter, which is what the Yankees organization did, or, hey, are we going to try and move him into a right-handed long relief role, if anything, maybe try to get some of that velocity back. He did make 16 starts last year and has made at least 15 in the past 3 seasons. So I'm hoping that the injury concerns are behind him, at least like the worst of the injury concerns, if you will. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this selection and what it may or may not mean?
So the first thing that I find interesting, and this is something Max pointed out in our Slack, is that he's like a guy that people looked at and said, he's probably a good Rule 5 choice. Everybody should probably look at him. So we're so used to, I think, at this point, the Royals kind of like pulling stuff out of left field and just being, and it's not a reference to MJ Melendez. They're just doing weird things and being like, no, our scouting says this is like ever. It was not like the consensus number one guy, but he was close to it.
Yeah.
So seeing the Royals kind of go with the logic that everyone else has is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I also saw Lance Prasdowski was tweeting about him. Where did I see that? But yeah, he says everything in his repertoire has averaged to above swing and miss, zone rates around average, high arm angle above average release. That sounds very pleasant to me.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. I love a strikeout. I think strikeouts are the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Royals haven't always agreed with that. It seems like they're changing their tune a little bit. So I'm good with that. I like that change. I've heard from multiple people who are like, yeah, he's starting for now. He's probably a reliever long term. If the Royals want to give him a chance to start, they don't have anybody else for the rotation right now. So maybe some free agents will fix that for them, but or some trade acquisitions. But I'm not opposed to giving him a couple shots at the rotation. Maybe this was an opener, see how it goes. I don't know, and then stretch him out from there. He's a guy who's got some talent, who's young. Let's see what he can do.
Yep, they certainly could have done worse. Some other major news from the, or quote unquote major, we're grading on curve here, guys. Other news from the Rule 5 draft. I was surprised that the Guardians, they kind of got out like bandits on the Rule 5 draft, but other teams had to pass on this guy. They got the Arizona Diamondbacks number 5 prospect in the Rule 5 draft. Yeah, a third baseman, named Devison de Los Santos. So that was certainly the biggest headline prospect, I guess, that was drafted. He wasn't at the top for these front offices, but that is just fine. Now, for those of you who are unaware, there's also a minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft, which if I'm understanding correctly, teams just pay money to acquire the rights of these AAA players.
No roster regulations with these guys. So with the Rule 5, I think everybody knows at this point you have to keep them on the major league roster or offer them back.
Exactly.
With the minor league guys, you put them anywhere in the system you want.
Yep. So I think that is a very interesting spot to look at building out a farm system. And the Royals did utilize that to the best of their ability. So a cool thing about this is once a team passes in the minor league Rule 5 draft, they are done for the remainder of the draft. It doesn't come back around to them. For example, even how bad the Oakland Athletics are, they said, no, we don't want to pay money for minor league players. So they said, hey, I'm done. And they didn't get back up. The Royals made 3 selections here. Are they going to be great? No, probably not. They were available in the minor league Rule 5 draft for a reason. I'm going to look at those 3 players later on for a Kings of Kaufman piece. I bring that up, though, because of who the Royals lost in that series of events. So the Cincinnati Reds picked up left-handed pitcher TJ Sikkema. The San Diego Padres picked up infielder Clay Dungan. And then there was one other one, the Washington Nationals. They picked up right-handed pitcher Wander Arias. So the Royals lost out on 3 players from the minor league system, but they gained 3 back in the AAA phase. I don't think that's I look at those names and I'm like, they kind of suck. They had some moments. But
the Royals have lost the Andrew Benintendi trade.
Eesh. Hey, is that wrong?
I thought they lost it the moment they not that there was any reason to keep him, but that was all they could get back was a little disappointing for me.
I gotcha. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. That's the Rule 5 draft is in the books. Thankfully, the Royals didn't lose out on any of their major, their top Rule 5 draft eligible talents.
Kept Tyler Tolbert, kept Devin Mann.
And I think those were the 2 big names that folks were keeping on. And I love him or hate him. I think he's kind of divisive amongst the prospect watchers and Royals fan base. CJ Alexander is still here. He's a quality depth guy that got a ringing endorsement from George Brett.
I was going to say, how can you doubt a guy that George Brett thinks is amazing?
And like I remember in spring training, they were talking to George Brett on the broadcast, and I think CJ Alexander hit a homer while Brett was talking. It was just a chef's kiss moment. Before we get on out of here, we would be remiss if we did not talk about some of the free agency rumblings surrounding the Kansas City Royals. Nothing. I'm saying rumbling
to a simmer.
Yeah, the hot stove has remained quite cool for the Royals.
I mean, I think it's on.
It's
not boiling over yet.
Yeah, and we kind of want it to boil over.
They're being tied to free agents. Last year, we had that article who was like, Brandon Nimmo, and everyone was like, no.
Yeah.
And then nothing.
That was it. And yeah, like the Royals are being tied to several, not just players. I think the Tyler O'Neill trade link is very interesting. I would like to evaluate that one a little bit further because I don't know if adding Tyler O'Neill fixes the outfield, but I think it does something to the outfield.
Fixes anything. The Royals are too damaged for one player to fix anything.
Even Juan Soto? Even Shohei?
Soto, I don't think. I mean, Shohei Ohtani has proved that you can't fix a team with one player.
Yeah, that's actually
even one who is like not even a once in a lifetime, a once in the sports lifetime talent. Like people are gonna be like, well, Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth didn't hit like Shohei when he was pitching. He didn't pitch like Shohei either.
No.
Okay. Shohei is one of one in all of baseball history.
Exactly. It is. I think that is without a doubt. That is definitely a debate that we can have later on in the offseason because I would love to get more of your thoughts on that later on. A couple of guys that they're being linked to in free agency, though, really high name starting pitchers. Eduardo Rodriguez. Yep. They were named amongst the final 4 teams for Rodriguez's services. Now, John Heyman is reporting that he has whittled that down to 2 teams that he is considering, and that we should be expecting some news on Thursday. So I would love to see Eduardo Rodriguez come to Kansas City. That would definitely be kind of the best realistic option that they could sign in starting free agency.
Yeah, I mean they were never going to get a Sonny Gray or an Aaron Nola, but an Eduardo Rodriguez is not. He's not a. Oh gosh, I forgot his dang name again. The guy that they signed last year that we can't.
It's Jordan Lyles.
Jordan Lyles.
You forget about his name so often.
I just am trying to stop remembering that he pitches for the team. He's not a Jordan Lyles. He's a legitimate third man in a rotation, maybe even a second man in a rotation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be an exciting signing for Royals fans. I mean, the Yankees fans are like, well, what am I supposed to do with Eduardo Rodriguez? He's supposed to go get me second Garrett Cole. But yeah, so for Royals, it would be exciting. I'm excited for the possibility.
It would, and I think that he really values quality of life when it comes to his baseball career.
Royals can buy him a house.
Yeah, Royals can buy him a house and some peace. Because I remember him declining that trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers, citing his family.
I might have been making a reference before your time.
You were
trying to keep Johnny Damon. They bought him a house.
Oh, really?
They were like, here's a house. You live here now. You stay, right? You're good, right? And he was like, I sell the house, thanks.
Good job, Royals. Yeah, that sounds like a great front office blunder right there. Another guy that they were linked to, Lucas Giolito. I'm happy to hear about that.
A lot of people are very excited about that. He's an excellent bounce back candidate.
Yeah, he is.
Breakout.
He is, and he has started. I want to say like the last 3 seasons, he's made at least 30 starts. If I'm remembering that correctly. Listen, he's not going to be an ace. He's not going to come in and be, just the top guy.
Probably not.
What did you say?
He might be. He has been. Probably not, but he might be.
Maybe.
Which is more than you can say for Jordan Lyles.
No. Yes.
Josh Taylor.
Anyone else you want to throw in there?
Your mom.
Jeremy, my mom's dead.
Well, she's not a very good pitcher then, is she?
Oh my gosh! Oh my god! Why are you like this?
I'm asked that question on a daily basis.
Fair enough. So there's not a lot of solid moves that the Royals have made so far. Frankly, there's not a lot of solid moves that have been made around the league so far.
Shohei Ohtani.
Yep. We're waiting on the dominoes, and like you said, David Lesky and guys, Craig Brown also brought it up in his Substack. The biggest moves in Royals history, i.e. the Zach Greinke trade, the James Shields trade, things like that, they happened after the winter meetings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's something to be said. Royals fans should not be, going out in the front yard and stripping naked and crying to the moon that their team has not made a free agency move.
Don't ever do that. Just as a general rule, don't do that.
Even not in the winter.
It's never necessary. It's never helpful.
No, it's not. I find it very therapeutic when I do it every night.
And we're asking what's wrong with me right now.
I just had to stoop lower, man. That's how that goes.
Well, that's what we can always count on you for, Jacob.
Going lower, you go low, I'll go lower. That's how it goes. Hey, if you want to see us at our lowest, though, you got to find us on social media. You can find the podcast on X at Royal Rundown Pod. That is ROYALRUNDOWNPOD. You know where to find us on socials as well. I will say this, though. Royals Review is on Blue Sky. The one and only Max Reaper.
So are we.
I mean, we are, but I haven't gotten on Blue Sky in a long time.
I wrote a Blue Sky post this morning.
I'm more of a Threads guy now. I'm sorry.
I know. Why do I talk to you? I don't understand this.
But I'm sorry. Blue Sky has taken so long to move along. You know what I mean?
I'm no more Facebook products for me, thanks.
Okay, fair enough, actually. Listen, they already have all of my data. Why not just give them a little bit more? It's just how it goes. Well, welcome to life, Jeremy.
No, thank you. I would like a return, please. Can I have a refund?
Nope. No refunds on life around here.
Curse you.
Hey, listen, if you want a refund, I don't know like how that really works. I don't know who you can talk to about it either. Do you just go to Walmart?
Jeff Bezos probably knows.
Probably so. All right, hey, before we get too in the weeds on the meaning of life and have an existential crisis, why don't we go ahead with some Royals reviews?
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you, and I'm going to grab the steering wheel again. All right.
Oh, no, you're doing
Before
it
we
again.
get to the Royals reviews.
What
I want to know. Huh?
What did I forget?
You didn't forget anything.
Okay.
I came up with this, and I just was waiting for the opportune moment, and apparently it went right past me like I'm Jack Sparrow. So I'm throwing out a fishing line and I'm yanking it back. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
One move that the Royals make, you got to bet. This is some real money, but if I put a gun to your head and I said you got to bet $100,
okay,
what move do the Royals make? Give me a prediction now. One guy they get rid of. Either of those.
One guy to get or get rid of?
Yeah, or both if you want, if you're feeling frisky.
I think they trade MJ Melendez.
Damn it, that was mine.
I have bamboozled you, Jeremy.
You have. You've gotten rid of me. I'm gonna. All right. You took my bet, so I'm gonna go high risk, high reward.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yep.
They're bringing Eduardo Rodriguez. He's coming.
Okay. That would be a big bet. I will say that. Fangraphs predicts. Fangraph says that he is worth, not predicts, he is worth a 4-year, $76 million contract. Now, that's not in the 9 digits that Royals fans want to see, but that is still, I think that would come out to be the richest free agent contract in franchise history.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Just ahead of Alex Gordon.
Yes. Just barely. Remember Ian Kennedy?
He got 472.
Yes. Remember Ian Kennedy, that fever dream? 4 years, $56 million.
He was... I'm still ticked because he was so good before he got hurt. I think it was the second season. He was so good. And then just everything fell apart from there. I was ready to become an Ian Kennedy fan. I was ready to become a Dayton Moore believer. I was ready, and it all fell apart.
Yep. And I will, just to channel my prospective radio show host self as I fluff my jacket, the Royals need to make a high risk, high reward move like that to keep
neither of us,
interest.
and I guess I kind of eliminated this with the way I described it, but neither of us picked Bobby Witt to be extended.
Yeah, because
Eduardo Rodriguez is a less risky bet than that right now, I think.
Yes. Very true. Very true. I think we should talk about the Bobby Witt Jr. extension stuff next week because there hasn't been a whole lot of news, but I think we've let that update simmer a little bit more, and we can evaluate what JJ Piccolo and Matt Quatrero has said from the winter meetings. I'm still holding out hope, but we shall see. Jeremy, let's go ahead and get to reviews before we get on out of here, huh?
All right, I'll let us do it this time.
What you got, man?
I haven't done a lot recently.
Okay. Been kind of a quiet week.
Stuff. So I'm gonna give you. This is kind of I feel like this is a cheap move. I'm gonna give you H Bomber Guy and his video that he just posted earlier this week. That's just kind of all over social media right now. Polygon wrote an article today that was like, "Hey, this video exists." And I was just like, "Oh, okay, so it's reached that level of popularity where we're just going to write an article that's like, hey, it exists. We acknowledge its existence." And it's called Plagiarism and YouTube. And he talks about the problems of plagiarism on YouTube, how people just rip other people off. They just go like steal their videos, their whole videos, and just copy their what's the word? Their monologues like over. They do. Especially happens with video essays. They'll just rip the video, and then they'll take their words and re-record them in their own voice. Sometimes not even changing them. Sometimes changing them a little bit and then post it as their own.
Wow.
And they also rip off articles. It's just nasty stuff. And there was one, well, I don't want to say too much about it because it's a 4-hour long video. So
oh my goodness,
buckle in. But about halfway through, there's kind of a twist that was kind of interesting. I hadn't heard of the people that he talked about as plagiarizers in that video, but they're pretty big channels, some of them. So I wouldn't be surprised if you, Jacob, or you, the listener, have heard of one or more of these people before. So it's interesting. It's also, so he talks about specific people, but he also talks about the general idea of like, why is plagiarism bad? Mm-hmm. And he doesn't really have a solution for it because the only obvious solution is to kind of mimic YouTube's copyright system for plagiarism, but we all know that we can't trust YouTube's copyright system.
Yep. Exactly.
I don't know if you've ever done any YouTube video shenanigans, Jacob, but I sure have. Mm-hmm. And YouTube does not understand fair use.
Nope.
And a lot of the people who use the YouTube copyright stuff don't understand fair use. And it's a giant mess. So yeah, you don't want to put YouTube in charge of it, but so basically you kind of have to publicly shame these people, which is what H Bomber Guy did. So it's H Bomber Guy, and it's called Plagiarism and YouTube. So check that out if you want 4 hours of thinking about plagiarism.
And I think that is definitely something that we can all learn about. I will say, being a writer, Jeremy, I mean, do you recall? I think it was like late last week. We all found that site. I think it was like the Fan
Yeah.
Reacts.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are sites out there who will take our writings and just republish them.
Plug it into an AI and
Yep.
then publish the gobbledygook that comes out. Yeah,
The-
and YouTubers are starting to do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of disappointing. It honestly, the one really nice thing about watching the video is, I don't know about you, but I've spent a lot of my life as a sports writer, especially worrying about doing a plagiarism.
Yeah.
Hey, I read David Lesky, I read Craig Brown, I read everybody else at Royals Review, I read your stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to do a plagiarism. I need to sports write, but I also need to read other sports writers. How do I not do a plagiarism? And the answer I kind of discovered through watching the video is that for me, as a person who desperately wants to share my opinions, and explain them and talk about them and why I believe them, it would be harder for me to do a plagiarism than to not, because to do a plagiarism is to take someone else's ideas, and I'm really just, I don't need to go through all this, but I'm doing it anyways. Take someone else's ideas, present them as your own, and then say nothing else, add nothing to the conversation, and that's a plagiarism. And that just seems boring. That just seems lame. I don't understand how these people, like, how can you just take someone else's words and then record sometimes multiple hours of video essay that's someone else's words, and then just not add your own thoughts even a little. And how do you look at someone that you really enjoy, because obviously you really like their stuff, if you think you should rip it off, and then not want to give them some credit, like as we did with all the people we referenced today. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've got David Lesky's thoughts. I agree with him on some things. I don't agree with him on other things. But I think he's a good writer, and I think that you should support him so that he will continue to write, so I can continue to not plagiarize his ideas and cite them properly.
Yeah. And we are, I can't imagine being the person to plagiarize to that level, that those, or to honestly to any level. What am I talking about? And I think in some of the black and whiteness of sports, I think that's where I've worried about, being accused of plagiarism and things like that. Because like, there's only so many ways that you can frame stats. There's only so many ways that you can say, this is how many homers, RBI, and things like that they had. So that's where I've more worried about it. But yeah, if you actually form your own opinions and come to your own conclusions and be independent, it's pretty hard to plagiarize.
And that's kind of one of my takeaways from the video, is that all the people that he talks about that are plagiarizing aren't people who are doing video essays because they love doing video essays, because they want to talk about their opinions. They're people who want to make money.
Yeah.
That's all that they care about. And that's the difference between someone who does video essays to make money and someone who does video essays because they want to and would like to make money.
Exactly. Well, hey, sorry, we were actually dishing on that for a little longer than I was expecting.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're just fine. I think that's a great conversation to have, because that's not something that we think about very often. And you would be surprised of how many sports sites out there are, fringe plagiarizing work.
And how many are just straight plagiarizing? This AI website that you were talking about, not the first one that has completely ripped off our work over at Royals Review.
That was the first time that I heard about it, but that was, whew.
It's at least the third one I've heard about.
Wow. And that's just with AI. That's not including the humans who sit down at the keyboard and go, hey, I'm gonna take this work and repackage it a little bit.
Exactly.
My review for this week is a little bit more, what's the word? Simple, I guess. You go from a 4-hour long video about plagiarism in YouTube. I raise you a plate of Spam, eggs, and rice. Have you not had that before?
I've had fried rice with eggs, and I haven't actually had Spam in it, but I know Spam is a popular fried rice ingredient.
Yeah, so it's something that I didn't like grow up with. But Spam, eggs, and rice is more
I
of
thought this was
a
going to be a metaphor for something.
no,
I realized we've
no.
been literally talking about Spam, eggs, and rice.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a dish or a plate that has some Pacific links,
That
because
makes
those are
sense.
all very, affordable ingredients, and they give you enough for, a hearty dinner and things like that. I introduced it to my wife last night. Basically all you do is you just cut up the thing of Spam into some thick slices. You fry it up, you render off that fat, make up some good rice, and I like mine with a sunny side up egg. And it's a nice simple meal. It's very hearty. It was pretty cold, so that was a good hot meal to have.
Got my first snowflakes today of
Yeah,
the season.
dang,
Very exciting.
that is wild. I thought it was cold here. Goodness. But if you're looking for a new dish out there, just to say that you tried it, I would definitely go to the store and get some Spam.
Are you trying to stop me from eating spaghetti for the 6th night in a row?
Maybe, Jeremy. I have been watching.
You can't. No one can.
Only you.
No one can stop me.
Only you can
even stop me.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm gonna make us take way longer, and
Fine.
if you're tired of me, you can turn it off now. Nothing else important is going to be said for the rest of this podcast. The reason I posted on Blue Sky this morning was because I was like, I need to start posting on Blue Sky. So I'm gonna start trying to remember, like, when I tweet some random thought on Twitter, I'm gonna post it on Blue Sky too. And I was like, all right, well, what's a random thought I want to tweet? And so this morning I tweeted both on Twitter and on Blue Sky that my apartment smells like burned sherry. And that's because last night I tried to make some sherried carrots to go with my dinner. And I don't know how many of y'all have had sherried carrots. One of my favorite side dishes. Really easy to make. You take some carrots, you put them in a pot with some butter, some sherry, some water, maybe some parsley, a little bit of sugar. And you don't have to do anything to it. You're just like, it's in a pot. You set it, you turn it on the stove, you bring it to a boil, then you simmer it for 20 minutes covered, simmer it for 20 minutes uncovered. Done. Sherried carrots. Very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. You know how I said simmering?
Yeah.
You don't simmer usually at high.
No, you don't actually.
No. So I left my stove on high for the simmering section.
No.
And then I wasn't paying attention, and the all the water and sherry evaporated, and butter evaporated, and just burned carrots and burned caramelized sugar and sherry, and smoke just everywhere. It was a time.
Oh, I bet your neighbors loved that smell, didn't they?
They probably would have been upset if I had any. My apartment complex is empty. I do not know what's going on. I don't know if I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't actually live here, and we're all escaping before, like, the alien, like, take this whole place out of here, like, just with an apple cart, just, like, scoop it up. Or maybe you do that with an ice cream scoop instead of an apple core. I don't know.
Yeah.
You with some sort of scooping device, probably. But yeah, I don't have many neighbors right now.
Dang. Oh, it's tough out there. But hey, just remember, if you're having a bad time out there, remember you can't have as bad of a time as Bob Nightingale, who literally, it was 1 minute before news broke of the Juan Soto trade, he tweeted out criticism of Hicks and Boone, the Yankees leadership. He was like, so-and-so has left the winter meetings and heading to the Nashville airport with no trade or Juan Soto deal in place.
He sounds like a Royals fan on trade deadline day.
Yeesh. Yep, just gotta wait it out, Bob. Have some faith.
Oh, well, Bob. What would we do without him? Have a shorter podcast. What would you do without me?
We would
have a much shorter podcast.
I don't think I would have a podcast without you, Jeremy. I think that's what a co-host is. Oh man. Hey, listen of a long podcast. It's just because we're once a week now, coming out, recording on Wednesday nights, releasing Thursday mornings. We, for the time being, we're going to be like that until, spring training stuff starts ramping up a little bit more, hopefully. But for now, you just have to hear us for about an hour every week.
When the Royals sign Eduardo Rodriguez.
Oh my gosh.
I will record a solo podcast that's just me screaming and dancing. Only you can't see the dancing because it's a podcast.
Oh no, that will go straight to YouTube, friend. Straight to YouTube.
Where it will be copyright claimed into oblivion.
Yep, sounds about right. All right, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get on out of here. If you want to keep up with our antics, you can do so on X. You can find our handles and such down in the podcast description below. Please go follow the rest of the work on royalsreview.com, where you can find them on social media as well, plus the great work from the team over there. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was great to talk to you again. Not for everyone, to everyone out there. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your continued support. And until next time, go Royals!